just want to just talk a little bit about what this, I hope this evening will become. This is a stellar group and varied experience, whatever that means. I want this to be about how actors hold on to that thing which made us actors in the first place. That desire to create a role, the training we've had, the fire in the belly, in a very commercial setting and in a very technical setting where there are marks you have to hit and matching you have to do and overlapping you can't do and all that stuff. So we're going to start by just beginning with the problem of, well, what happens to me tomorrow? I've got an audition I'm self-taping and something I'm reading for that I really don't understand. It was written recently, I am sure, and they want me to show them what they've written. They want me to come up with something, and I'm going to come up with something. I'm going to have fun doing it. But it's different than doing theater, where if you do a play, the author has had time to write the play. You have time to rehearse the play, and probably what the author writes, not always, but what the author writes often makes a lot of sense because he's had time. So in television, you get a few minutes rehearsal, if you call it rehearsal, and you, the creativity is something you have to bring to it. So I want to start with auditioning, and I'll probably, I want to start with Patrick, because I heard you once say that you changed your head about what auditioning was for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything you just said is so true. First of all, thank you all for coming out on a Thursday night. You're working towards your own career and your own benefit, and you need to be rewarded for that. And for your friends who missed it, tell them that they missed it, you know? You got to show up, and that sort of lines up to it to begin with. So you have this audition, and you get it either on the way over here tonight, but usually it's not at your convenience. Usually it's not enough time. And this has been a constant. I'm an old man, I'm 52. I've had my SAG card since 1992, so I've gone to commercial auditions all over this town, and now I'm having to do it in my living room with an iPhone, and I'm mad, and I'm resentful and pissy about it. And I can be mad and pissy about it, but the fact of the matter is, that's how you get a job these days. So am I on board with that, or am I not on board with that? And that is sort of the whole thing for the attitude that I try to bring to it coming into it. Do you want the job? Because the job today requires that you go over to Paramount and you have to park on the 4th floor up and you need to fight traffic, and it's at 5 o'clock, and I know you have that other thing you wanted to do, but you have to get that covered anyways, and yes, you have to put on that suit, and you're going to walk in there and the sides aren't going to make sense, and you have to show up anyways and sit in that room, and there's that guy and that girl and that guy, and why are they, don't they know who I think I am? And that face is there. Who wants to hire that face? No one wants to hire that face. So I guess my idea is that, you know, if you want the job, show up for the job and stack the deck in your favor. Because there's somebody out there who really wants the job, and they are stacking that deck. They're stacking that deck by not staying late at the party. They're stacking that deck by knowing their words cold. They're stacking that deck by having their ears open and an ability to change on the fly with what you suppose the audition was supposed to be, and to be able to adjust like that. Does that mean you get the job? No. No. You know, so many jobs I've gotten because I thought I walked away going like, well, that didn't work. That sucked. That wasn't what I wanted to do because I was too busy directing myself. My job, after 25 years, what I think my job is to stack the deck in my favor from the moment that call comes through. And whatever that means, and we all can talk about what those things mean, stack the deck in my favor. So in that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, half a scene or whatever, I get a chance to show somebody across the way that I know how to act, that I know what I'm doing, and they can trust me in front of their camera, on their stage, in their movie, to handle their words and act like a professional.
Patrick, I remember you're saying at one of these panels, actually, that you changed your point of view about auditioning when you started thinking of giving your performance at the audition.
Thank you.
instead.
Yeah, Richard's, he's being kind. He's trying to cut me off. He's like, dude, there's other people talking here. It's a mini performance. You got 3 minutes to perform. It's your moment. It's what you're waiting tables for, right? You're waiting for the call. It's what you're waiting for. You have this moment to actually go on and put a mini play to the best of your ability, forgetting all the things that are stacked against you and stacking everything in your favor to show them you know how to put on a play for 3 minutes. And then you walk away, and your job is done. Whether you get the job or don't get the job, that's not your business, not your side of the street. Your side of the street is going to show them that you're an artist. You know it's doing it. Here's my performance. It may be the only performance you get to do today. It may be the only performance you get to do all week, and the rest of life is on your shoulders like a yoke. So take advantage of that sunshine, of that moment. It's what we got into it. I mean, Richard said, we got into it for the fun. Well, go have some fucking fun.
Yeah,
right?
Jenny O'Hara says, often she'll say to herself before an audition, this may be the last chance I get to play this role. And I love, of course, she's such a wonderful actress, but that's such a great, does anybody else have ways of, Bob, you're a professional actor, and Liz, I've heard you on the subject of the way of self-talk, of the way you bring yourself into that room.
Well, there are two things that are impacting our industry in a big way: time and money. And unfortunately, there is not enough of either of those things. So what's happened is the industry has been trying to reinvent itself to accommodate those shortages. And one of those ways is through self-taping. Technology has become a huge part of this. The reality is that as actors, we rely on a lot of other people to give us opportunities, but we have to take back some of the power, and some of that comes from actually, investing yourself in the process, whether it's self-taping or even if it's just putting yourself on tape to see what you're doing. So the main thing you want to do is you want to be prepared for those opportunities. Richard pointed out that tomorrow he's got 2 auditions that he needs to be at the same time. Until they start cloning us, it's a physical impossibility. So what we have to do is figure out how we can accommodate that. And in this particular case, he's going to have to self-tape himself. You don't want to wait until you have to do a self-taping to learn how to do self-taping.
Yeah, this is entirely because of the way time is now. Both auditions said to me, they have to see me at the time that 1 o'clock and 2:40, that was a possibility to get from the Valley to LA 5255 Wilshire Boulevard. I probably could do that if they would see me at 1 o'clock. I could probably but then they changed the time. Right. And I said, I can't do it. And they said, okay, can you self-tape and can you have it in by noon tomorrow? Yeah, I can, because I'm going to be listening to Bob Telford tonight.
No pressure. In response to that, Richard, I mean, Patrick has already brought this up. This bad boy right here is a powerful tool. Not only can you tape yourself, but you can send it instantaneously the minute you've got the tape, and there are ways of editing on this as well. I mean, I know Jordan, he does, editing is a part of his, he makes a living doing that. But the reality is that the technology has become more and more accessible to us, and we have to learn how to use it. That doesn't mean we lose our creativity. You still have to maintain that balance. You have to be creative, and you have to be able to say, I know how to do this.
And Bob, what you've said to me is that, this also will pertain to Jordan, the more you have command of what seems to be just technical stuff, the better you are at it. And I'm like, I'm an actor. So I've got to do this. Now, I have somebody who tapes for me, but he may not be there tomorrow morning. I already sent him an email. But seriously, I'm going to be listening to you.
The line of first defense is you want to enlist a professional to help you do it, because in reality, that takes a huge load off of your shoulders. You can focus on the creativity.
How do you fight with your wife if you do that, though?
I can fight with my wife.
I try.
Right? It's the worst thing. She's like, let me help you. My wife's a writer-director, and then she'll frame it up, and she's a writer-director. Did I say that? So she frames it up, and the first thing I do is go like, well, let me check the frame. So that's a
Trust.
great way to get some good stuff on tape.
You got to trust. The other thing that comes into play here is knowing who you are already, so you don't have to think about that, so that you can go in there and you can still do your job the way you would do. Like Patrick said, when you go into the audition, you're doing your show. That's your mini show. Same thing applies even when you're self-taping. You don't back away from all of the essentials that are necessary to giving a solid performance that can guarantee you an opportunity to nail that job.
Liz, you talk to your actors from a very special, from my point of view, a very special point of view, which is that you have been an actor. And when I heard you on a panel, actually with Patrick a while back, I thought, she's got to have been an actress. Now, my manager, whom I adore, doesn't know a lot about acting. What do you say to actors who are fairly young and going into that room? How do you talk to them?
As you gentlemen have so graciously shared.
Switch it on.
Oh, there we go. See, this is why I don't act anymore. This part traumatizes me. You'd think I'd have figured it out by now. I'm enjoying this quite immensely, and I actually needed this amidst the craziness of pilot season right now. But I've had no shortage of 12 conversations in different various angles of these topics in the last 24 hours. One is it's hard, is this videotaping? Are my clients gonna see what I'm saying? So we'll go with code names. But I've had clients who are so blessed and lucky and are with very large agencies, and they get a lot of opportunities. And self-tapes are a unique beast happening now. One is, as you said, it's a shortage and a way for casting directors to sift through really quickly a lot of people without having to go through the trouble of bringing a lot of people into their rooms. What's happening now, particularly in this pilot season, I've heard this from many casting directors, is everything has gotten greenlit with a 2-week period of time. That happens normally, but in this instance, casting directors are having one producer session for a role. They're finding 2 or 3 out of the 8 actors that they see that they want to immediately go and test on, and they rush to test, so they're not getting to see as many people as they normally were. When I send a self-tape, I get clients who say, oh my gosh, but the person who normally tapes me is not in town. I was like, well, great. Well, we need to figure out how, the moment that you get a self-tape, you have a go-to list of 3 people, no shortage of 3, and they need to be professionals. Because the only way that tape is gonna resonate, because don't forget, casting directors shut you off in 2 seconds. So I have lots of conversations about how are you gonna really impact us through your self-tape? You know, hair, makeup, strong choices. I've seen too many self-tapes come through that are just reading the lines. I'm like, guys,
Talk about strong choices for a moment.
strong choices. Really invest in the character. Figure out who this character is. Not entirely who you think that they are. Really find the clues. Read the script. Really, I hate to say use your director hat, because I think as an artist you should be clear and you should come from your artist space. But you got to think, what are they looking for, but what can I bring to the role that's going to be unique and different, and something that follows the grail of how this role is supposed to be, but has my unique sense of self in there.
You mean you got to read the script?
You have to. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, and what's amazing to me is how often you don't get a script when you're auditioning. So you have to Sherlock this yourself. You have to figure out not only what they mean, but, and this is a constant for me, they haven't written some of it. You know, they really want to see it happen in front of them. They want you to show them, which can be very exciting. And on the couple of occasions when I've been on a show where writers have actually written for me, because I've been on the show for a while, that's thrilling. That's a thrilling part of working in this, in film and TV. You get you get the opportunity to co-create something.
Can I just jump in, though?
Yeah,
I also
jump.
find, and this is important, you might not always have access to the script, but ask.
Yes.
Ask your representatives for the script. A lot of times, agencies are so quick, and they are just rushing to get you an appointment out, and a lot of times, they don't send you the script, but the script is readily available. So it may feel like you're annoying your agent, but please ask.
Thank you,
And if
Liz.
do it
I
with-
haven't thought of that.
You must. There's every single pilot script is out there right now.
Yeah, right.
So just ask for it.
The pilot scripts, yes, it's episodics where I find that it's very
Episodics
hard to
is
get a
definitely
script.
harder.
Yeah, yeah. So then you walk into, you've auditioned, and then you get the job, and then you walk into a soundstage where keeping what's going on for you in terms of your creativity is a whole different thing. You've got the job, that's wonderful, they like you for the role, but you may get a rewrite when you arrive. You may have a director who is bad at communicating something but really wants to communicate it, whatever it is. Just in terms of what you do, two actors here, Bob and Patrick, when there's pressure on the set, have you got ways of dealing with it? Do you listen to music? Do you meditate? Do you run your lines over and over again? What do you,
Does crying count?
crying counts. Crying's good, yeah.
Alcohol? No, I'm just kidding. You want to take it first?
Yeah, you know, right? You get the job. Yay, we got the job, and it's amazing. And immediately you can't even stand on that plateau long enough to be like, yay, I got the job, because immediately, at least for me, I'll speak only for myself, by the way. I immediately start going to low self-esteem land. I'm like, oh, they couldn't get the guy they really wanted, so they got me. So I've already sort of like, there's a turd in the salad. I've already decided to do that, And I mean this dead seriously. This has not gone away from me. And so I get there, and I'm waiting for I'm waiting for that person to come up and say like, I'm sorry, there's been a mistake, Mr. Fabian. And that leads all the way up to rehearsal and everything else. And also, if they've changed something, I got the job. They've changed something in the script now, or they've cut a line. Oh, they saw my tape. I sucked. They cut a line. It has nothing to do with me. And that's the thing, because it's all about me, right? It's all about you. And then it really is not. It's a giant thing that you're a part of. You're a very small piece of it. It's big for you, but it's small in the whole. And so you get there, and don't take it too personally. Don't take any of it too personally. You're there to do your job. And the same that you did the job to give yourself 5 minutes to do a show, now you're doing this show. Except this show isn't directed by you. And your opinion of that director is great for after the job is over. But right then and there, that person, he or she, is the director. And so you go into actor mode, professional actor mode. And that means I listen to hair and makeup, and I listen to wardrobe, and I listen to my first AD, and I listen to my cameraman, my lighting person, my sound person, and all those things. And what I try to stay focused with is my words, and I'm memorized, and I'm cold. And when they come up and they say, we have to cut this, as a professional actor, I start editing in my brain. I figure it out. That's my job. My job is to take those 3 minutes to go, okay, it doesn't quite work for me. And if I really have a problem, then I know I can talk to the AD and then talk to the director aside and say, like, well, this isn't working, and then you have just a give and take, hopefully. Not always. You have to be willing to roll with the punches on that sort of thing. But again, it's that weird dichotomy of holding both thoughts in a hand of, you must be self first. You must have some sort of self-love and narcissistic thing to even get into this, because you have to have a wherewithal to do that sort of thing. But in the same respect, you have to sort of push that away and not take it so personally and make it not about you at the same thing. And it's hard. And if you haven't got enough sleep, or if you think the part has been rewritten poorly, or I've certainly auditioned for so many things that I've gotten the job for, and I get there, and it's literally wholesale written differently. And I'm clinging to what got me the job. I'm clinging to this idea that I got the job, and really, they hired me because they saw I was an actor. And they obviously feel confident enough that I can do this. And then you roll with that, but it takes me a while. Like many an audition, I'm so good in the car ride on the way home. My steering wheel has witnessed such beauty,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's the same way it sort of feels on set, too. And even this deep into it, 25 years into it and whatnot, sometimes it all, just clicks, and it's good, and you feel like, yeah. And other times, it's sludge, it's hard, and you feel sweaty, and is it hot in here? And all that. I'm not immune to that, and I think that happens all the time. So again, long-winded, as you can tell. Roll with the punches. be able to adapt on the fly.
I once played, I really worked on this audition because I knew this guy. He was a tough, Orthodox Jew from Brooklyn. He was a rabbi, and he could beat you up. He was that kind of rabbi, right? I walked onto the set, and the director said, listen, the producer wanted me to tell you something. Your audition, too Jewish. So I had to make a very quick change. I mean, the part was well written as this but he wasn't a Brooklyn rabbi anymore. I had to find a way to do it. It's amazing how much changes you get handed when you're on a set, and rewrites. I have done a closing argument in a television show that was rewritten an hour before, like a minute and a half of me talking at the end of a Steadicam shot. So it was, and actually at that point it was actually better writing than the first time, so it was easier to memorize. But it could have been worse, and I could have been, I've seen actors swim just when they go up, that awful feeling of they just don't have the lines. And I just want to go to that for a moment in terms of the set. How important is it to know your lines as an actor? Is it really that important? I mean, you know, can you kind of know your lines, get the idea, the subtext, you know?
You got to know your lines.
This is an editor speaking.
So, you know, I look at the work after you've done it, and I serve the story. And the story requires that this character says certain things because they're setting other things up, they're paying some other things off, they're expressing a really critical point of view of this character, they're moving the story along. And the writers, believe it or not, work very, very hard on every single word, trying to make it as great as they can to express what it is that they want to express. And if you don't know the words and you start moving stuff around, this beautiful house that they've built for you to live in starts to fall apart. And it causes trouble downstream and upstream. You know, we may have a scene, to make up a silly example, you might be the person who gives the clue as to who the murderer is. And you don't know that because you just happen to mention that a red car went by. Well, you haven't read the script for the full episode, so you don't know that the audience knows that the red car's got the killer in it. So they watch the scene and they go, oh. But if you say like, well, you know, he drove by, it was a bright colored car. Or it was a mauve sort of taupe kind of thing. Like, it's got to be red, you know? And like, that's the most concrete example of how it goes. But it's also emotional things. You know, your character may say something that triggers something in the other character that reminds them of something that's been said to them earlier in the show, or is the setup for, you know, somebody doing the same later in the show, or reminds them of something their mom used to say or something. Like, you know, there's so much effort and work put into the dialogue. You really have to know it. Now, this is easy for me to say since I don't have to memorize it, and I'm in constant awe of the ability of actors to do it. But it is, unfortunately, like a very basic prerequisite of the job. If you want to be a pass receiver, you need to be able to catch footballs. If you want to be an actor, you got to be able to memorize lines.
And it's not just memorizing them like a phone book, right? First of all, you have to read the script. Are you saying you do?
I think reading the script is invaluable.
Really?
If you can get the whole script. With pilots, it's a lot easier because someone's always got a copy of the script floating around at the agency. But with an episodic, I understand why it's really difficult.
When you're working, however, you have the whole script. And I've seen a highly paid actor, series actor on a series who obviously had not read the script, who said, why is this here? He just hadn't taken the time.
I don't think that reflects very well on them.
It does not. It does not.
And frankly, the work suffers. And at the end of the day, there's only going to be one face on the TV screen looking bad in that scene, and it's going to be the person who didn't do their homework and
Going,
didn't
going to
contribute.
look impassive as he does all the way through the series.
That's probably a good
expressionless.
strategy.
Yes, that's a good strategy.
That's a good strategy.
But you're saying not only do you have to memorize the words, you're talking about something else, subtext and emotion and all that. Talk about that a little bit,
Yeah,
because
and
you're
if-
looking at that when you're editing.
Yeah, as an editor, one of the really big things that I'm looking for point of view, I'm looking for cause and effect, and I'm looking for somebody who knows why they're saying what they're saying. And, you know, you guys, you're analyzing the scene in the big picture, and then you sort of zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. I watch every take over and over and over in the process of building the scene, and so I'm watching the moments between the lines as well. So another thing that's very important to me is an actor who listens when the other actor is speaking or doing. Because I'm looking for that little moment where they do that little nod that you just did, and you just did a little nod, and my little editor brain goes, oh, I could cut to that. I can cut to that to say, oh, they're actually interested in what Jordan's saying. Conversely, they might give me this reaction of like, oh, geez, this guy's an idiot. And then I can go, oh, great, I got that reaction too. And I can cut to them to tell the audience how everybody's feeling about what they're hearing. So they've got a point of view on what they're experiencing right now, and they're listening to what I'm saying, and their point of view is coming out because they're making faces, they're moving their body in some way, they're pushing out an attitude. And I don't mean like to be big, obvious, pushy, bad about it. I mean, there's just like, even just sitting here quietly,
Right.
you can look in his eyes and you can see that he's thinking about something, and that works. That's all I need. So I'm looking for an actor who understands their point of view on the scene, so they know how they feel about the other people in the room and how they feel about the situation around them. Do they like these people? Do they hate these people? Do they want to be here? Do they want to get out as fast as they can? And that's going to color everything else they do, which is great and interesting to watch and fun. And I expect for an actor, that gives you something to sink your teeth into and to have a good time with.
And much of the time, let's say you're not even the lead guest artist in that scene. You may have 3 lines in a scene in which the star of the show has a long speech. But if you bring in your point of view, you can use it. You're going to look for that, right?
Yeah, especially if it's a long speech.
Yes, right.
I'm going to be looking for it because chances are the lead actor is going to be great for the first third in one take, the middle third to the last quarter in another one, and then they just nailed the last 2 lines in a different take. Okay, so now I got 3 takes that I want to put together. I can't just jump cut from one to the other. I could switch camera angles if they were the same take. So what would really be great is if I can cut to the members of the jury to see if they're buying what he's selling. So you've got your 1.5-minute speech. I would love to cut to the jury box once or twice to see people going, or whatever they're doing.
Not for my
I'm the best
minute-and-a-half
actor in
speech.
this room. As you can see, I am a wonderful actor. But just see their response, and that helps the audience see the story. Oh, the big speech is working, or oh, it's failing. And coincidentally, it helps me cover the fact that I cut from one take to another take, or I cut from one angle to another angle. It helps smooth it. But if you're someone who's sitting in the jury box, it's easy to just have this quiet point of view, and you're not pulling focus from the lead. You're actually supporting the story. And actors who are supporting the story are people that we want to put on screen. They're people that we want to support, and they're people that we appreciate. And we also appreciate the fact that they know that they're supporting the story and not necessarily being the story. You know, it's the flip side of the coin is to have an actor who's trying constantly to steal focus and be the most vocal person talking in the restaurant, or, making a real huge meal out of something that's not a meal. And if you sort of know where you stand in the hierarchy of the story, and you understand the function of the scene and your function in the scene, then you can sort of calibrate yourself accordingly and realize, I can give something to the other actors in the room that is of value and is positive and is helpful, and I don't have to be the starring person. I can be the starring person the next go-around or something else.
Right.
Richard, if I may jump in here for a second. The one thing that what Jordan just said is something that it's a philosophy that I have always held, which is that no matter what's going on, you are on camera. You are supporting the script, but you are on camera. So even if the lead is doing their long speech, I still consider myself to be on camera because you never know what they're going to use. Richard Richardson, or is it Robert Richardson? He's a cinematographer. Shoots a lot of big films. He rolls even when you don't know that he's rolling. You never know when he's rolling.
Right.
And so you want to be ready for that.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating. But I think, and just to piggyback off of what Patrick said earlier, when you go onto a set, it's like you're a guest in someone else's house. So you want to be a good guest. And so you want to be present, and you want to be aware, and you want to be relaxed, so that no matter what happens, you're ready to accept it. You're ready to take on that challenge. If you're uptight, if you're all freaked out about who you're working with, if you're awestruck by the lead or whatever, you will not be present. So you have to allow yourself that luxury to say, hey, I'm at this great party, and look who's here. Oh, this is fantastic.
Sorry, you just said the lead. Who's that handsome man who's the mentalist? What's his name? Right. So I'm doing guest star on that, and he has a lot of words. He has a lot of stuff going on. So I'm there at crack of dawn. They have somebody else standing in for him. We block the scene because he's working very, very hard, and they're trying to save hours. So we come in, we block the scene with his stand-in, and the other actors are there, and they're going to shoot. They're going to shoot my way first, and he walks in, and I'm not kidding you, I think the most handsome man I have ever seen in my life up close. He walks in and leans down with that Australian accent, and he's like, hello, good day, and he smiles that smile, and all of a sudden I'm just like, what am I, a schoolgirl? What's going on here? I'm married with 2 kids at home, what the hell's going on? But I'm totally taken out of it, because I was just like, oh, I was so surprised, because I thought I was jaded, to be starstruck, and I was. And then he's like, great, and he smiles his million-watt smile, and he goes, if you don't mind, we're going to go your way first so I can warm up. I'm like, great, no, that's fine, that's absolutely fine. Boy, his eyes are really blue. And they start shooting, let's go, ding, ding, and I get nervous because my lines just ran out of my head, and I couldn't say why, obviously. So to your point again, like, what do you do? Well, I go, okay, I'm in this really weird situation. So I breathe, right? I get centered, go to my solar plexus. I've been here before. Oh, I know my lines. Where am I? Oh, I'm in a jury room. What am I doing? Oh, I'm this dude. What's my point of view? This. Why do I know this? Because I did my homework. And then he shows me again how to be a number 1 on the call sheet on a series. He's completely off book, off camera from my takes. Yes. I get exactly 2 takes. I'm the guest star. We're probably not going to be lingering on me a whole lot. And we got him to shoot, and he's really pretty. Did I mention that? I get 2 takes, 7 in the morning, boom, we turn around. And then we spend a lot of time getting in on him and stuff like that because he has a whole bunch of stuff, and he has a ream of stuff to say. He is word perfect all morning long. Now, he's got a big life, and I know he has a big family, and if anybody can sort of slough it off, because I'm number 1 and pretty, it would be him. The exact opposite is true. Stone cold all morning long. So impressive.
He's made that investment. He's made that choice that it doesn't matter, he's number 1, he's making that investment. And I think that's a sign of a really good actor. You talk about, what is it that got us into this business, is that if you enjoy the process, if you enjoy the idea of working with other actors, good actors. I mean, in my mind, you want to make that, you don't want to be the person to spoil it. You don't want to be the one that goes, I didn't know my lines, I wasn't prepared. I mean, the reality is that's what keeps, at least for me, that's what keeps me going.
And the other thing for me is you're in a room with a crew. And the more you get to know your crew, the more you get to know the names of crew members, the more it's like a family, sometimes a dysfunctional one, but but definitely like a family. You're surrounded by people all the time. It's very different than the theater, where you're on stage with actors. You don't see your lighting person. She or he has gone away, and your stage manager is running the show from over there. On a set, you are surrounded by the people who are making the show with you. And I love that. I've really gotten to find that as a resource. And the other thing in all this is that there's a lot of self-talk that we do to ourselves as actors, which I've gotten like smarter about with myself. And it always involves what somebody else thinks of me. You know, oh, he doesn't think I'm any good, or I blew that line. I'm all that stuff Patrick was saying earlier. In fact, as Patrick said earlier, what goes on in other people is a mystery to you. You cannot read minds. It's one of those great, amazing things I've discovered as I've been doing this for a while. I'm incapable of reading somebody else's mind. And therefore, my assumption about what they're thinking is, hey, they may be pissed off. It may be that it has nothing to do with me, or it may be the set of their face. And that also gives me some kind of, I don't know, warrant to go back on those things, again, Patrick was saying, which is, why am I here? Why did I just come in? Where am I coming from? Where am I going to? And what do I want from this guy that I'm talking to in the scene?
You mean you're doing the work?
Doing the work, yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's a book, I think it's called What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. That was a big one for me. And I think, as we talked about, I think the difference between a lot of really talented, strong, working actors is their respect and appreciation for the work. There's a lot of people in Los Angeles and elsewhere that want to be famous, and they don't do the work. And a large grail I even use for myself as a manager, and I have the same struggles that an actor does. I want to get my clients jobs. I want to be good at my job, and I want to continue to work. Is sometimes when my self-talk comes in the way, I go right back to what does the work entail? And the work entails me reading the script, me being informed, me taking care of myself, me calming the mental midgets in my mind, you know, and me focusing on the work. And that has always been something that I share with myself and my clients.
Yeah, because we're all doing a job, and we can get in our own ways in doing a job, and in a very highly pressured situation where a lot of people are looking at you, and you're the guy at a particular moment when the camera is rolling. It's very easy to increase the pressure on yourself instead of decreasing it.
Can I tell a story real quick?
What?
Can I tell a story real quick?
Sure.
About the pressure of that? So I'm fortunate enough to work on a show called Better Call Saul on AMC. It's by the creators. Thanks, man. It's by the creators of Breaking Bad, which is a big fat hit, Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould. So I get the job through Impossible Stuff and Witchcraft. So I'm there on the first day of set. And it's my very first day. We've come to Albuquerque. AMC and Sony are there. They're very excited about this show. So there's all this sort of like sense of like, ooh, don't fuck up, basically. And so it's the very first day. I'm sitting in a conference room. It's supposed to be my conference room. And I'm sitting at the head of the table, and there's about 10 extras flanking on the sides. And there's three cameras right about where Ron is sitting right now. And I'm sitting there, and Vince Gilligan is on the other side, and here we go, and the clappers come, 3 cameras, clap, 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 and I was like, oh, we're about ready to film this, and literally in the back of my neck is like, oh. I'm like, wow, 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 and they say action, and the person comes in and says his line, and I say my line, and I realize I'm trying to make sure my hands don't jitter because I'm really nervous, and they say cut. And Vince comes from around the camera and starts walking down this long table, and I'm already like, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna tell my parents I lost this job, and I'm gonna be cool, I'm gonna be totally cool, I'm gonna like, I get it, you had to get rid of me, I totally understand that. When he comes down and says something, and he comes walking down, and I think he's looking at me, and think he's looking at me, and looking at me, and he gets halfway through the table, and he puts his hand down on a Danish that is sitting there. And he turns it 1/2 clockwise. And he walks back. It was about the Danish. Had nothing to do with me. And I sort of had a laugh inside, right? But it was a great reminder. I was like, you know, if there is a higher power, that was mine saying, get over yourself. You got the job. Talk and listen. What's the scene about? The scene is not about, is Vince Gilligan going to fire me? The scene is about that guy coming in. And it was a great gift. And I think those gifts live on every set in certain ways.
I think I'll use this as a motto. It's about the Danish. That's cool. That's very cool.
You know, the thing is, everybody on the set wants you to succeed. Like, I hope you guys know that they want you to go in and be awesome and to nail it and to be great so that people will watch their show and be interested in it, and also so that they can get home at maybe a reasonable hour.
Yes.
But they want you to be awesome.
Yes.
And when you are awesome, they remember that. I mean, I can speak for what it's like in the cutting room. When we get awesome footage, we tell each other, like, you know, I mean, I'm one of the luckiest guys in Hollywood. I get to sit and watch Claire Danes' performances all day. And they're astounding, you know? Everybody, I get to watch Mandy, I get to watch all these people. They're amazing. And, like, I'm kind of getting used to, like, that's what I should expect all the time, which is probably not a smart
Not a good
attitude.
idea, right.
But we do recognize the amazing work that you guys do. And the directors, you know, they love it. They want to see some of these takes over and over. They're like, look at this amazing thing that they did right here. Look at that great thing. And they'll say things to me. They'll say, like, oh, you know that part where she's on the phone at the beginning? I didn't tell her to do that. That was her idea. That actress she's awesome. You know, and they notice what you do. They love what you do, and they pass it on to us. And then sometimes we pass it on to the showrunner, or the showrunner may come in and say, like, oh, I heard there's this amazing thing with a phone. I got to see this. And so people remember you for doing the good work. And to be honest with you, most of the bad work, nobody outside those rooms will ever see it. It's my job to make you
To save my ass.
look as good as you can. You can call it saving your ass. I call it making you look good, because I want the show only to have the good stuff in it. And so does everybody else that I work for. So we're going to take out all the bad stuff. If you do 5 takes and 4 are not very good, but the 5th one is amazing, the 5th one's all that's going to be up on the air. And I got what I need. I can make that work.
Yeah. So there's all this stuff going on in the actor. He's trying to get clear on what he's doing. He's dealing with his own nerves. And he's got to do a performance that an editor can use. One of those things that comes up is, first job I ever got, I was, they actually started on me in a single on a witness stand. And I was playing a very contentious witness. So when the guy would ask me a question, I would interrupt him and say, no, that's not, whatever the line was, right? So I would overlap, because that's what you do. Somebody says something, you interrupt them, you come in. But somebody said no overlapping. I had no idea what they were. I'd never heard the term. I was a young actor. I'd never heard that term before. Why can't I overlap?
Well, overlapping is realistic. People do it in real life. It expresses an emotion, but it ties the hands of the editor. Let's say we're on the witness stand and we're going to have 2 camera setups, basically. We're going to have one on the witness, and then we're going to have one on the lawyer, right? So if he overlaps with the lawyer on his best performance, but it's the lawyer's worst performance, now because that audio is married together and I can't separate it, I'm stuck with a bad performance from the lawyer. Does everybody follow what I'm saying? So what's ideal for me is if they don't overlap. If the script says that the lawyer's going to say, what about the man in the red? And he's going to say, it was blue. I told you it was blue.
You saw that movie.
I love that movie. The lawyer, you need to jump on the lawyer after he says red. You can't let him say the next word, but the lawyer also needs to know to stop himself in time from saying the word. Because once you guys
in
overlap,
the master, you can do that. If you're together in a shot, you can overlap. So then when you get to singles, you're in trouble, right?
yeah, I mean, I would sort of prefer that you don't overlap necessarily in the masters as well, but
Yeah, well,
because
too bad.
because I also can't put a pause in if I want to pause there. Like if we decide it would be more fun for the lawyer to say, so you're saying it was a red, and then have him go, no, it was blue. Now you look suspicious, like you don't quite remember your story. If we want to do that and you're overlapping, I can't build that moment. I can't put
Right.
that beat
That's
in.
very interesting.
So, but if the director tells you to overlap, do it. The director is the boss.
Yes.
There's times when you're going to overlap, and we're going to be in a two-shot, and you guys are arguing, and it's awesome, and I'm just going to be like hands off the
Yes,
keyboard.
yes.
I'm playing this take as long as I can
Usually
because it's awesome.
the dialogue goes, meet the director. Can I overlap?
Yeah. Hi, can I? No. But some directors
Yeah.
really like it. Some
Yes.
directors don't. I'll just say from the editor's point of view, it ties our hands at times, but at other times, it's really fantastic. So I would just say as a general rule, try not to do it.
Yeah.
But if you're in the heat of the moment and it's really fantastic and it's a shot of the two of you, if you're both on camera, then it's more likely to stay.
But I guess my sort of overall thing on this is that it is very artificial. When you're in a single and you are interrupting somebody and you wait for the interruption, you've got to keep that going. It's one of those technical things that is like another technical thing, matching. So matching is, as I understand it, often misunderstood to mean that you have to do exactly everything you did, including your point of view, emotion, etc., as you did in that last shot or in the first time you did it. And it's not quite that, right? What do you match?
It's not quite that, because as you perform the scene over and over, the director is going to give you direction and you're going to interact with your scene partner, and the scene is going to change as you go. You're going to discover things and add beats or subtract beats. So we don't expect that emotionally everything is going to be the same all the time. But what is a challenge for us is when your physical motions start to become really varied. Because when the camera's pointed at him, if he has a specific motion, like if I say, hey, do you want to hold my microphone? And then I hand it.
Yes.
Then I can't do another take where I go, hey, do you want to hold my microphone? Because now the microphone's, which position's going to be in? You got to kind of decide, because then when we turn around and do coverage on the other side, it's got to match, or else the eyes are going to be looking in the wrong place because they're expecting to see a microphone here, but actually it was over there.
Yes.
Or when I cut between the two of us, you know, the old-fashioned, like the glass of water, that's sort of the classic example. If he picked the glass of water up and then said his lines and then hung on to the glass in one take, and then in the other takes he didn't do that, and then for some reason I need to use that one take where he's got the glass up for a part, it's going to be like the glass is there, the glass is gone, the glass is there. And now the audience is watching the glass instead of watching the moment and living in this experience, and that becomes a problem. So generally, you want to try to match your physical actions and the moves. So it's like when you pick things up, when you put them down, when you stand up, when, you know, some people do as far as like they know when they're going to gesture, when they're going to put their hand in their hair. It's an amazing technical skill that I really admire people who can do it really well. And I think there's some actors who say, like, listen, I can't be in the moment if I'm doing this stuff. You're just asking too much of me. I'm an artist.
Right.
And, you know, I get that, but the great ones can do it. And the good ones can do it. And the mediocre ones can do it. Like, everybody can do this.
So who's left? Who is left in that?
Who's left are the people who refuse to do it.
I see.
I think at a certain point it becomes belligerent. But it really does cause a problem because, like, you say, well, this would be a great moment for us to jump out to the wide shot.
Yes.
And so you jump from a close to a wide shot and you go, oh, crap, he's not sitting in his chair.
I worked with a director once who was watching a guy eating a meal in the scene. He was starting on the guy eating the meal, and the guy was doing the most interesting things. He'd like sip the soup and look at the spoon and then like and then I spilled something on it. It was tremendously complicated. At the end of that take, the director said, "That was great, and you're going to hate yourself in 40 minutes." But talk about varying. Let's say a director says to you, you know, it might be interesting if you are pushing her as opposed to begging her on this take, you're still going to have to pick up the coffee cup at the same spot, right? You can
Yeah.
beg and pick up the coffee
Yeah,
cup.
I mean, you
and
can do anything with a different attitude behind it.
Right.
But I mean, maybe pushing isn't the right word because people may think we're talking about physically
No,
pushing.
I'm talking about an action.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I would still like you to
Intimidating,
do. Yeah,
let's say.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right.
better.
Yeah.
I would still like you to pick the coffee cup up at the same time because I might use the wide shot. And in the wide shot, you got the coffee cup there.
Right.
Or in the medium, we're shooting all this coverage and we're constantly moving closer and closer and closer to the actors as the camera coverage increases. And usually people are really discovering the scene as they go along. So by the time they get to the really close coverage, the performances are changing and they're becoming more interesting and more heartfelt, and there's more beats and more connection and more things happening back and forth. And so at a certain point, we want to stay there, but there's always a chance we're going to jump back. And also, they may direct you to some variations. They may say, oh, well, the intimidating didn't work so well. I told him to do intimidating, but I don't think it was great.
Yeah.
Let's go to the earlier ones where it was more
Pleading or
pleading
whatever.
or
Yeah.
seducing.
Yeah.
And so I say, okay, great, I have that. But then, if the coffee cups are always up, then I can bounce around no problem.
Yes, yes. The thing that you point out in your book, which is, again, I got to say, you got to get this book, How to Avoid the Cutting Room Floor. It's really a terrific book. One of the things that is notable about it is how important everybody in the scene is. And you tell a story about a prison guard. Do you remember this?
Yeah, this guy was great.
You could work the microphone.
Yeah, that's why I'm not an actor. Yeah, we had this scene in The Shield, and it was a really small scene, and it was just designed to set the stage of we're in a tough prison. And there was a guy who was playing the head guard, and then there's a bunch of prisoners, and they're all in a hallway, and the prisoners on either side of the hallway, and this guard is barking the orders, get everybody, it's strip search time, get the shirts off, shoes off, face the wall, whatever he's doing. And this guy was really scary. Like, I was really terrified watching this guy's footage, and it wasn't even my episode. My friend down the hall, Hunter, said, dude, you got to see this guy. And he showed me the footage, and I was like, oh, it's every nightmare I have about what prison would be like. It's terrifying. And this guy was phenomenal, and it's a nothing part. It's a tiny, tiny little part. He's not going to be a recurring character. He's not coming back. He's just in it during the opening credits, setting the scene. But he's fantastic. And so my friend who was cutting it was like, I was like, dude, you got to put in as much of this guy as you can.
Right.
And he tried. He did what he could. And then, the cut changed as it went further down. But I'm sure if that had been my footage, I would have said every time someone was changing, I'd be like, well, yeah, I'm glad to make that change if you'd like. But I will just tell you, I find this guy fascinating and terrifying and compelling, and I would love to keep this in.
Yes.
And a lot of times I can win that argument. So, like I said, we noticed the good work. And this is a guy who took like the smallest role and like made it. I'm talking about it all these years later.
And contrast that with Rent-A-Cop.
Oh, Rent-A-Cops. So Rent-A-Cops, that's sort of my example of actors who are pretending to be their role rather than really being the role. So, I worked on The Shield for the whole run of the series, and I edited from season 3 onwards. And so we saw a lot of cops. We saw a lot of people get arrested. Like, it happened all day, every day on the show. And I've worked on a bunch of cop shows since, and it's galling to watch actors who come on and don't behave like cops. Like, cops are scary. They get in your space. They take advantage and they dominate in every situation because that's their job. They're trying to protect themselves by asserting dominance right away. So, one thing that a cop will do when you have your scene, like they go to somebody's house, right, because they're going to question somebody or they got called here because a crime was committed, and they knock on the door and the person opens the door and goes, oh, officer, what can I do for you? Cops, people who aren't playing a real cop, are just going to look right at the person and have a nice conversation. Real cops are going to look past the person, to see who's hiding around the corner to shoot them, or who's standing with the bag of money outside the closet, you know.
Or to intimidate the guy they're talking to say, your house is mine.
Exactly. So that's how you behave when you're that person. And so that's inhabiting the role. That's being the character that the story says you are. And if you're a person who can't bring themselves to do that to other people, you're not in the right part.
Yes.
And you should try to become that person. You know, the other things that the rent-a-cops do is when they arrest people, they're really nice about it. You know, they just sort of like, they're like, oh, can you behind the back? You know? Whereas the real cops are like grab, wrench, toss, you know, within the safety parameters of a set, but they go for it. And so, you know, the nice cops who stand around, I call them, you know, like, they're not doing it. They're not selling the reality of it.
And you want to use as little of them as possible.
Those guys are ending up on the cutting room floor because they didn't do the job. The job was to convince the audience that they're this person so that we can continue buying into the illusion of the story and we can watch the show and not think about the fact that, wow, that person looks like a librarian, they don't look like a cop. You know, like, I don't believe that person just chased this guy 3 blocks and tackled him and shoved his face through the window.
2 things I want you to talk about, and then I want to get to Bob on self-taping, because this is very selfish on my part. Moment of decision and the button.
Okay, so the moment of decision. This is something that I really, really look for when I'm watching my footage. And I love when actors do this, and I always try to get it into the show, and I think it's so awesome. It's that moment where you decide that you're going to do something. So the boss comes in and says, listen, it's really important to the mayor and I that you lie on the stand today because we got to put this guy away. And instead of just saying, okay, that's not interesting to watch. What's interesting to watch is that 2 minutes where the character goes, Patrick, you could do it, where the Patrick character is thinking about it. They're thinking about it. What's in it for me? Should I do it? Yeah, I'm going to do it. That's interesting to watch. I want to see that movie. I don't want to see the movie where the story says you make a decision and that moment just gets glossed over. Watching people make choices is part of what makes watching TV and movies really interesting. So it's the moment where you decide, and it can be a small decision. It can be like, am I getting this brand of cookies or that brand of cookies? Like, you don't want to take 5 minutes with that. But when somebody says, listen, you're going to give me that code number, or I'm going to blow up the stadium. And then we're going to be on that big, fat, juicy close-up. We're going to watch the cops sweating it out, you know? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Are they going to do it? Are they going to go for it? I'll never tell, right?
That was great.
You love that. I told you I was the best actor in the room.
Terrific. Terrific work.
But you want to watch that stuff. But, I mean, that stuff is great. But you don't want to milk it too much. Like Sophie's choice, she makes her choice in 2 seconds, which also tells you something about how she felt before, that it was so easy for her to make that choice. But I just always want to see you making decisions, consciously making decisions, and I find that totally fascinating. I want to see those gears working. I want to see people adding it up. You know, like somebody's is telling you stuff and you're starting to realize, oh, my best friend is the one who sold all of our secrets. And so you just start hearing things and you're listening and reacting and you're hearing it, and by the end of the speech when they say, okay, so now that I've told you everything, are you willing to testify about what you did that day? And then you get that great moment. What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? I love that. So I always want to see that. So that's the moment of decision. And then the button is the moment at the end of the scene. Okay? And so like the classic example is like a buddy cop scene, and we're in the interrogation room, and we've been trying to get this suspect to admit that they were at the car wash that day. And at the end of the scene, they're like, well, maybe I was there. I'm not sure. You know, they've been denying it the whole time. And finally they're like, yeah, well, maybe I was there. And then we look at each other. This is the good version. And we're like, yeah, we got him. That was good, huh? You don't think I was a little too much? But you know how we feel about what we just experienced. And that's the button on the end of the scene that wraps the experience up.
Does everybody in a scene have a button that you want to see? Do you want to see everybody have a final moment?
That's
You
an
want the
interesting question.
option.
I would like the option. I mean, I don't think the guy cooking fries in the background has to be like, that was
Right.
cold.
Yes, if,
You know.
if that's interesting. though. That could be interesting.
That could be interesting. I actually like to have the scene in the front at the counter, and then he cut to the fry guy, and he's like, wow. But, I mean, you do want to have that moment where the couple has just had a fight, and you want to see at the end of that scene how they feel, each one of them feels about it.
Yeah.
In a way that is safe for the character, so the character's not revealing too much to the other character.
Yeah.
You know, like, they don't want to be like, ha, I tricked you. You don't want to see that.
Right.
But you do want to see how they feel about what they just did. Like, they get up, they make the big speech, they walk behind the curtain, and you have that moment where they go, oh, God, I was terrible. I was so bad. That's the button. That's a really interesting button. Or they kill somebody, and then they realize that vengeance didn't feel as good as they thought it was going to feel. That's a nice button. That's a cool moment. But it also could be, you know, like, just something really easy and simple. I'm thinking all big stuff now, so it just jumped out of my head. But, I mean, are these things that you guys have experienced on set where they say, button it up for me? Do they always go like that?
Well, you know, also at the end of scenes. No, go, Bob.
I was just going to say, in soap operas, they have that look, and it's actually, the look is, did somebody just break wind?
Yes. Yes.
And if so, who did it?
Yes. In soap opera scripts, they say
give that look.
on Jack, and that they mean that he's got the button, he has the reaction, and often it goes on for a very long time past.
Yeah, you know, that idea of keeping it
past-
alive. You know, we talked about
Right.
this a couple of times on a technical aspect of like the overlapping and whatnot. And these are just technical things. In the same respect, you know, the scene's not over until the director calls cut. Whether you think you've been sort of standing here in space too long and the last words have been spoken, or you've said your last thing or whatever, or somebody has exited the scene and you're still standing in your kitchen, because you have no idea unless you're really, really paying attention. You can always ask if you're interested. My curiosity doesn't go that far, to be honest, but they might be in a slow pan. They might be racking focus between your eye and the back curtain. The director may already be the editor as well. He's going to have his director's cut, right? So he already knows he wants his scene to end in a certain way. And so in terms of buttoning and whatnot, you know, I get both. I think sometimes I've had a bunch of things where, unfortunately, I think I'm leaning more towards the soap thing, where all of a sudden something becomes very squinty towards, you know, way out there, which is disconnected. And that becomes an artifice. That becomes me and feeling nervous, right? That's not connected. Because think about it in your real life, when something really has gone down and somebody has exited the scene, or you're on the phone and something traumatic has happened. There's no camera there, but have we not stood there like just transfixed for 30 seconds, maybe unable even to take in our breath from what has just transpired? So why not in your scene? Why not incorporate that sort of thing into your scene? It's the outside again. It's me sitting out there looking in. That says, "Oh, break." Do this or do that, as opposed to behave, you know, and let the cameraman do the camera stuff and let the director do the director stuff. But I'm sitting here just stealing from Jordan right now. No, absolutely. He's telling me, this is a man who like looks at images all day long, looks at people all day long. And he's telling me, you know what's interesting? And I'm sitting here going, I haven't thought about that. That's really smart. That's really smart. It's about watching people make decisions.
Yes, that was a big thing.
And all of
in
a sudden I was like,
yeah.
oh shit, that's what it's about.
Right, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's really, it's funny and horrifying at the same time. I'm like, oh, have I missed
Doing
that? Or
this
have I
for
been
a
lucky
while.
hitting it every now and then? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's great. It's really, if that's the only piece of advice you take away from tonight, take that. Make decisions in all of your work.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and-
It's the mechanics of life. I mean, basically, you know, everyone focuses on the dialogue, when in fact it's not the dialogue. It's what's happening in between all of those beats
Yes,
and those
point of
those
view.
gaps.
Point of view. What's your point of view as the character? What do you need? What is your relationship to everybody there, even if you don't have any lines or you have 4 lines or whatever?
And what's
yeah.
your expectation
Yeah, right.
of what's going to happen?
Yes. Yes.
So hearing
Your
Jordan talk about the
expectation-
listening thing, you know, this goes all the way back to, should you memorize? Yeah, I think memorization is the lowest form of intelligence when it comes to being an actor. Figure it out. It's your tool chest. Just know it. The guy behind you is going to be stone cold on the audition. So if you don't want to be stone cold, that's cool. But if they made time, stack the deck in your favor. In the same respect, here's a prime example of why you should have it stone cold as best you can. Because half your job is listening. He just told you, I want to see what it's like for you to participate in the scene. And if half your audition is looking down at the page, what do you think that camera's looking at?
Yes.
What do you think that director's looking at? The top of your head.
Yes, right.
So you can be active and alive. We just talked about this all night long, about the idea of being engaged. You don't know who's looking. Who are you performing for? We're performing for the scene. I don't know how they're covering. That's not my job. My job is to be in the scene. What's my job in the audition? To be in the scene. So are you talking to me? Well, I better be listening when you're talking, because it's going to inform me what I'm going to say back, right? Because that's all it is talking and listening. And if you're talking to me, my turn. My turn.
And also, when you get to the set and you've memorized every word and you know how it should go, and then you get an actor who does something that you think is wrong or is interesting even, and you know, if you're actually able to listen, it changes you. And that's also very interesting to you, right? Being changed by.
Yeah, it's interesting to me to watch. You know, the directors are going to shoot 4 or 5 of a setup, and the last one is assumed to be the best one because after that they moved on to the next thing. So
Yes.
presumably they had what they want. But I like to watch the progression to see what changed and see like, oh, now the actor was told to really listen to that line.
Yes.
Now they're really reacting to that. Oh, this is interesting. Now they're delaying realizing something until this point. Or they've pushed the anger back to that point in the scene. Yeah. And I think that's totally fascinating to watch. And it's not always the last take that's the best one. Sometimes it's the first to last. Sometimes it was the first one where everybody's instincts were really good, and then it kind of got off track. And then I watch them and I go like, yeah, I actually don't really love where they went with this. Yeah. I'm going to put in the first one until somebody says I can't. Because sometimes that's the best.
So, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I can get away with it.
Yes. So, Bob Telford, help. I've got an audition in the morning, and now this is not the best way to learn self-taping. I've heard you on this subject. I want you to educate me.
First of all, how many of you have done a self-tape? Show of hands. How many of you have booked off of a self-tape? Okay.
Not off the self-tape. I did.
Right. All right. Yeah. First of all, you want to try and work with a professional. That's my first choice, is you want to work with somebody that understands the process, that recognizes the value of a certain kind of lighting, background, sound, composition, all of the things that are necessary to make you look good. Your job is to bring that performance, the same that you would, and we were talking about it earlier, Liz and Patrick, and we've all talked about this. You still have to do all the preparation. So the reality is even though you're self-taping, the work still needs to be done. So if you can work with a professional, that's great. The other thing is it's your responsibility to bring the specs to whomever you're working with. By that I mean, if you've been given the opportunity to self-tape, you need to know what kind of a slate they're asking for. Do they want a full body at the top? What kind of composition do they want in terms of, is it a 2-button, that kind of thing? Do they want a tail slate? Whatever it is that the casting director is asking you to do, you want to do that, including the way in which the content is delivered. In other words, size of the file, if there's a cap on the maximum size of the file. Once you've got all that information, then you pass that along. If you don't have the luxury of going to a professional and you've got to do it yourself, you still want to adhere to all of those specs. Now it's your job to do so. But it's like what Patrick was saying when having his wife do it. You want to have someone there to help you. Number one, you want to have someone there to read the lines with you, because I've heard of stories where people pre-recorded the lines of the other actor, the other character, and they played it back, and it didn't work. It will not work. It's a distraction to the audience. So what you want to do is you want to develop a co-op. How many of you have 2 friends that are actors? Do they live close to you? You develop a co-op with them. I will do it for you, you do it for me. You can go online and you can find, there's a wealth of information giving you the things that you need to know about backgrounds, the things you need to know about audio, all of the components that are necessary to do a solid self-tape. Do not ignore them. I mean, if you do, you're ignoring a part of the process that you are now responsible for.
Where does this live online, Bob?
Google self-taping.
Uh-huh.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me what you can find on the internet besides the little kiddie videos and all that. There are actually a lot of good videos out there demonstrating the process, and even if they aren't videos, there are casting directors that are willing to share their knowledge with you and what their expectations are, and it's pretty much the same as what they have to go through when they put you on tape. So you want to know what your responsibilities are now, not only as an actor, but as a producer. Now, the other thing you want to be, back to the cooperative, having friends, it's your tape. You do that, you're going to look at it, you're going to make sure it's good. Don't overthink it. It's the same as an audition. If you start overthinking it, you're in trouble. But you want to know that you're delivering a solid performance. So if you have to do it a number of times to get it right, then you do it a number of times to get it right. And that's a reality that you should all live with. And if you collectively with your friends, your fellow actors, develop a process, a shorthand, it will help you immensely. Do not wait until the last minute. Now, this is not, in your particular case, I don't know how you're going to approach it as far as how you're going to get this particular self-taping done, whether you're going to go to a professional, you're going to try and
Bob,
do it
I think
yourself.
he's coming to your house tonight.
We'll do it right here. But anyway, the point being is that you don't want to wait until the last minute unless you have no other option. Learn how to do it. Practice it over and over again. Go out, take your camera, whether you're using your cell phone or if you're using a point-and-shoot camera, whatever it is. If you're doing it yourself, do it. Just keep doing it, until you get it right. And look at the results. It's the same thing, when you're acting. You don't just do it once and walk away. You rehearse it. I mean, for those of you that are in theater, I mean, my God, why do we have 6 weeks of rehearsals? It's so that we can get it right, so that when we open up, it's going to be, a solid performance. So go through the process in advance as much as you possibly can. And then once you're satisfied with the take that you want to send, and by the way, they'll allow you multiple takes. In some cases, you can do multiple takes. If you're going to do multiple takes, give them a reason to see 2 takes. Don't do the same thing twice, because it won't make any sense. The other thing you want to be aware of is the proximity in which the camera is to you, because you want to make sure you're being heard. You don't want the entire world, the birds outside and the cars driving by and everything else that's going on out there, heard on that as well. So the closer that the camera is to you, the more likely you are to get the kind of audio that you need. And again, once you've reviewed it, then basically it's a matter of sending it off to them, and there will be instructions on where they want you to send it. And you don't have to do high def. You have that ability now. These cameras, it's incredible the quality of the cameras that your cell phones have, but this is not being shown in a theater. This is being shown on someone's computer. So what you want to do is you want to find the optimal size without overkill. Because once you've got something that's a clear image and it's not a cumbersome file, that then you can send it to them and know that they're going to be able to watch it, they're going to be able to see what you're doing, and it's not going to take 3 days to download.
Bob, I just got good news. My guy is there tomorrow morning.
That's fantastic.
But he's not always going to be there, or I'm not always going to be here.
Right.
So how am I going to get good at this? What do I have? I've got a camera here.
Right.
Right? What do I do?
In terms of the process, the actual physical
in terms of the process of getting good at
first of all, you don't want to turn the camera, you don't want to turn it on end so that you can get the image that you want, because then you've changed the aspect ratio. In other words, it's a horizontal, this is the way you want to do it. Your camera should always be horizontal. If you start doing this, when they get it, they're going to be like, they're going to have to do that in order to see it. So always horizontal. Go into your camera. All of you that have a cell phone, most all of you have now a camera capability in there. If you don't, you're not dealing with a phone that's in this decade. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to open up the camera, you're going to go to the video mode, and there's a red button that you will push.
Okay. I've done this so far. So far, so good.
Yeah. And then once you've done that, then you're going to replay it and see if you like it. If you do, once you're satisfied with it, that's when you're going to go to, there's a
But
thing
I'm
called
not going to
share.
hold the camera like
No.
this.
I would suggest, there actually are devices now, I think they sell them, most of your electronic stores actually have a mount that will hold the camera for you. You want it to be at eye level or slightly above, and there's a zoom if you need to push in so you get the two-button shot. Everybody understand what two-button shot is? It's, basically from the second button down. And at that point, that's the composition. Now, if they want a full body at the top, you're going to have to take the camera, set it back here, do that, stop, and then you're going to end up splicing those two together using the software that you have available in your cell phones.
I'm going to send this to my clients. Keep on going.
Aha. Copies of this video will be available in the lobby. So anyway, and again, don't rush the process. This is the one thing I think that people are so anxious to reach to reach the goal that they ignore the process. Rehearse it. Take some time, rehearse it, make sure you're comfortable with what you're going to do, and then roll on it. Now the other thing, and this is something I used to do, was that I would actually roll just totally cold just to see where I'm at. I will never use that, but I just want to see what's going on. What am I doing? Are there any things, any ticks that that are coming into my performance that I want to get rid of? And then once you've got a performance that you're comfortable with, then you basically go to the share and send it off.
You also suggest letting the camera run on you in life.
Oh, yeah, when we're talking about self-taping, there's obviously, again, a specific purpose in mind. You have an audition, you're putting yourself on tape so you can try and get that job. I advocate using this device beyond that. Putting yourself on tape, just for the sake of putting yourself on tape to see things that you do. For example, I did it one time where I was on the phone talking to someone, and I just ran it. In fact, I used the camera on my computer, and I just hit record, and I sat there and I talked to my friend for, 20 minutes, and I played that thing back, and I was like, what the hell are you doing there? There are little things that we do that we don't know about. Whether it's this while we're talking, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you lose those bad habits. I call them tics. But basically, it's things that we do that we don't realize that we're doing. And it's something you definitely don't want to have it on your performances. So utilizing it as a tool, as an acting tool, even beyond just simply putting yourself on tape. It's amazing what you will learn from it.
It's occurred to me also that you can see, if you look at yourself just in life, you can see the little adjustments you make when you start to act, which is useful to lose. It's very useful to lose your acting thing, whatever that is.
I like to say that if you have the opportunity to do this kind of an exercise, 9 times out of 10, the first take will not be as good as the 10th. Because you will have relaxed into the role, you have become comfortable with the dialogue that you have to deliver, the rhythm that you have with the other actor. And by the way, the other actor should not be standing right next to the camera. The reason is that the microphones on these devices are designed to pick up whatever audio is coming in closest to them. So your voice will not be heard as strongly as the person standing right next to it. So ask that person to step away from the camera further away than you are to the camera, to the cell phone. But it is fascinating what you can accomplish if you allow yourself and you take the time. Again, that's what I love about this business is that it's not just boom, one done, gone, goodbye. I mean, you're giving yourself an opportunity to work on your craft, and eventually when you find the take that you want to use, you send it off, and that's the one that hopefully will get you in the door. You know, and sometimes you will get the casting director will actually respond back to you and say, hey, you know what? I like what you did, but, and they will give you redirection.
Yeah.
That suggests you're on the right track. It's the same thing that would happen when you go into the room. If it's a one and done, thank you very much, you're out the door, you kind of got an idea where this one went, you know. And that's okay, because as Patrick said at the beginning, you could self-tape yourself. It's not going to mean that you're going to do fewer auditions. You may have to do just as many self-tapes before you book a job. But the fact of the matter is that's the nature of the beast. That's the reality that we live in, is you don't book every single one, but what you do is you get comfortable with it so that when you do have to do it, you're prepared to do so, and you're prepared to be creative, and you're prepared to have fun, and all of the things that I think that we sometimes forget because we get so caught up in the process.
And that returns us to actually what we started with,
Right.
which is once you've learned a technical skill, you should be able to do it with your left foot, so to speak. It should be a very little meaning for you, the technical part of it, the matching part of it,
Right.
or the overlapping part, or the self-taping part, so you can get to that part of yourself that is creative. Jordan
Excellent.
Goldman, Liz York, Bob Telford, Patrick Fabian, thank you.
Thank you, guys.